Hey everybody, it's Lain, and I am so happy that you liked the first Copic video that I put together. And I've already gotten some questions on shading with Copic, so I thought I'd do a really simple design here for you today. This is the Expecting Mother stamp from Amuse Art Stamps in Seattle. And it's real simple. You can see how big it is. I mean, it's actually very small. It's about the size of my index finger. And I've stamped it on Neenah white cardstock, and I'm using the Memento Tuxedo Black to stamp my image because you don't need to heat set that. And I am going to start by coloring this little person's maternity smock. And I am going to be using 3 colors of blue. I'm going to be using a BG49, a BG45, and also a BG05. It's a little bit of a different color, but I thought those would look nice together. And one of the things I do when I'm coloring first is I just make marks over here to see how the colors are going to look together. I always choose my colors before I start because I don't have complete sets of everything yet. And I don't want to start coloring and then realize I don't have the right colors to carry through with. So that's what I do. Also, this time I'm going to start by going in dark first. A lot of times you hear the recommendation to start with the light first, but I'm going to start with the dark and just see how it goes from there. And I'm going to pretend that this is a little sleeveless tunic that she's wearing here, and the light source is going to be coming from behind her, and that means the front of her is going to be a little bit darker. So I'm just going to go in, and I don't do the circles to start with. I just do kind of a little tiny brush stroke, and I go alongside the color of the stamped image or alongside of it. I don't go from inside the image out. I go from the stamped image in. So this part under her arm is going to be a little bit darker here, and this part in here hidden by her arm a little bit. And then, of course, the part under her belly is going to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to go back over that. So that's the first pass for her little smock. Then I'm going to take my BG45, which is also called Nile Blue, and then I'm going to go back over this and start blending a little bit, but really just putting down that first coat of color. And again, you see, I don't do the circles. I use kind of a brush stroke, and the key is to keep the paper wet, and so your brush strokes will blur into each other. If you let it dry too much in between, you'll end up with some more definite brush lines. So you want to keep the paper wet. So you can see we've got some shading areas here that I'm going to want to blend out a little bit. So I'm going to go in with my medium, actually my lightest color, which is the BG05. That's the holiday blue. It's a really bright blue. But when I use it on the edges here and I just kind of touch like a dotting effect, you can see how it helps blend it in. And I'm going to go over the whole image with that. And it just helps soften it, all those lines, and give it a nice color. And again, the cardstock's pretty wet, so it's gonna blend nicely and not give me a lot of streaks. So now I want to go back, and you can see I'm doing it in section by section. So I'm doing the bottom part of her top first, and then I'm going to go back and do the top part in a second, but I'm just going to work on the bottom right now. I'm going to go back in and darken some of these areas. Obviously, underneath her belly is going to be a big, dark area. And then under her arm, I want a little bit darker. And then I use kind of like a pinprick motion to get some of that color down on the page. And this part right up here is kind of hidden by her arm, so that's going to be darker too. I'm going to go up along the back of her arm too, and maybe along the front of her top here. And then I'm going to go over it again with my BG, my middle tone, my BG45, just to help blend that in a little bit. But it's already blending pretty nicely. I don't mind a little bit of definition between my colors. That doesn't bother me. I think it looks kind of neat. That goes along with kind of the graphic look that I like. So you may feel differently about that, but just do what works for you. You can see I got it a little bit too light right there. So the great thing about the Copic markers is that you can go back in and darken it up again. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm going to now work on the top of her, and I'm just going to give a little bit of darkness on the front here. Not too much, just a little bit, because it's a very small image, so I don't want to get too dark too quickly. I can always go back in and lighten it up. Now I'm going with my mid-tone, and again, remember, I'm going to pretend that this is like a tunic that she's going to wear over something else, and so I'm keeping her arm uncolored. And that was my BG45 that I used, and now I'm going to go back with the BG05 just to make it all the same color as the bottom. I want it to match. Okay. So that's looking pretty good. Her tunic is looking pretty good. So now I'm going to go for her pants. And for her pants, I'm pretending she's wearing a pair of brown, of course, maternity pants, and I'm using the E25 and the E29, and I'll show you what those look like. That's the E25 and the E29. And if you know about blending Copics, you want to pick colors that are pretty close together. You want the second number to be similar, as close together as possible, so E2 for both of these, and then the 9 and the 5. That's actually kind of far apart, but I don't have anything in between, so that's just what I'm going to use right now. So I'm going to start with the darker color again, and I'm going to make her back leg here darker. Even though the light is coming this direction here, this is underneath her big belly, so it's going to be darker. And again, I use a little bit of a brush stroke. And then the front part of her pants is going to be darker because of where the light source is coming from. So I just go real light. With the brush tip, you just want to kind of touch it like you're barely touching the page at all. And just put down the lightest bit of color that you can. You can always go back in and make it whiter or darker. But that first coat, just go real light. And you can see I'm trying to get into the little spots there. And now I'm going to take my E25 and go back in, color that. You can see the contrast between the two colors, so I'm going to have to do some blending there because the difference between the colors is so much. But the other thing I can do is just let it dry and put down another coat of the E25, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to let it dry for a second. The alcohol evaporates, and then I'm going to go back in with another coat of the E25 just to make it a little bit darker. And I think that looks pretty good. So that's good on her pants. The next thing I'm going to do is her arm. Since this is such a small area, I'm not going to worry about shading too much on this. And I'm going to pretend she's wearing like an orange turtleneck or an orange top underneath. That's the color I'm using. It's a YR68. I'm just going to go real light. I'm not going to worry about shading this one at all because it's so small of a space on here. And that's it for her turtleneck, or her top underneath. So the last thing I have to do is to color her skin. And I'm going to use an E21 and a little bit of the, maybe E25, let's see, E21, and I'm going to use the E00, I think. Let me grab my E00. Okay. So we're going to use the E00 and the E21. Here's the E00. You can see it's a real pale color. And the E21 looks like that. So I'm going to lay down the E00 first. I'm going to go lighter on this just because skin is still something I'm working to learn. And I don't want to go too dark too fast. And I'm going to get her little hand there too. And then I'm going to take the E21, which is, you know, they're quite far apart, E00, E21, but the colors are so similar. And I'm just going to do the front and underneath her face. I'm going to go over her neck, and I'm going to do her hand again. And that's it. Her hand, let's give her a little bit more. So that's it. What I'm going to do with this, and I'll show you the finished card, I'm going to punch this out, mount it on a card for an expectant mom. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll have links on everything that I'm doing on my blog at layoutaday.com/Copics, C-O-P-I-C. Pop over there and take a look at what I'm doing. Thanks, guys. Bye.